Under the title Yearly Temperature and Precipitation for the areas of Manaus, Amazonas, and Brazil, the graphic comprises two components, a line graph and a bar graph. The temperature is shown in Celsius on the line graph, while precipitation is shown in millimeters on the blue bars. On the x-axis, we have the months of the year, which begin in January and conclude in December. The most rainfall, up to 300 millimeters, is recorded in the months of March and April, while the lowest is recorded in the months of July, August, and September. Finally, from January to July, the temperature is nearly constant, but it rises dramatically in August, September, and October before declining in November and December. The diagram illustrates the various stages in the life of a honeybee. We can see that the complete life cycle lasts between 34 to 36 days. It is also noticeable that there are 5 main stages in the development of the honeybee, from egg to mature adult insect. The life cycle of the honeybee begins when the female adult lays an egg. The female typically lays 1 or 2 eggs every 3 days. Eggs hatch in 9 to 10 days. Baby bees come out of the eggs in 5 to 7 days. The nymph molts 3 times as it grows, finally 4 days to maturity. This graphic shows how waves produce energy. In the middle of a column is a turbine, which is connected to a generator on the exterior of a chamber constructed into a wall or cliff. When a wave enters or exits the chamber, it turns a turbine, which in turn provides electrical power. There are a number of components and stages that allow waves to produce energy. In this image, a tall building can be seen near a heritage building. It is a glass building and a skyscraper. It is a piece of modern architecture. On the roof is a glass overrun which is described as a glass blade by the architect. On the west and east facing sides, aluminium strips can be noticed. The old heritage castle is of bricks and has traditional architecture. The heritage buildings are becoming part of the development and new and modern buildings are built on it. Three alternative meanders or loops with a water path are depicted in the illustration. The water runs through the meander in the first image, but the narrow neck of the meander begins to disintegrate owing to the power of the water. The next graphic depicts the progress of depositions in the narrow neck of the meander. The water is now rushing quickly via the fastest course, virtually cutting the small necks of the meander. The final photograph indicates that the meander has been entirely severed, and the water is flowing smoothly via the new, shorter and faster course. We can deduce that water has discovered a way around the meander on its own. Below median rainfall is predicted for Australia from October to December 2002, as seen on this map. Yellow and red hues suggested a 60% to 55% possibility of below average rainfall on the east coast, while blue and green colors showed a 35% chance on the west coast. West coast rainfall is more likely than east to dip below the median, on average. European nations' populations between 1997 and 2007 are depicted in this bar graph. Except for Poland, where the population fell from 38.6 million in 1996 to 38.1 million in 2007, all nations recorded increases in their populations. With 82.3 million people in the provided years, Germans had the biggest population, which increased slightly from 81.8 million people. During this time period, Poland's population decreased, whereas Germany's population grew somewhat. The dual horizontal line graph provides a crucial piece of information on the pay gaps in Scotland and the UK for men and women for the period of 1997 to 2005. The Scotland pay gap is marked with a blue line, whereas the UK pay gap is shown by a dotted line. Both the gaps are measured in percentages. While both the countries' gender pay gap shows a steady fall from between 15 and 20 percentages to 7 and 14, the dotted line, that is the UK pay gap, remains constant even in fall. The Scotland pay gaps line shows some zigzag pattern from 1997 to 1999. To conclude, the gender pay gap for both the countries has gradually got down. The scene depicted is a seascape. We can clearly see a ship in the middle of the ocean in the photo. After that, there are a variety of marine life forms to be found, including dolphins, tropical fish, whales, and sharks. The whale is the picture's largest animal. At the bottom of the photo, we can spot some submerged vegetation. Finally, the image offers information on the precise sizes of marine life. This pie chart displays various determinants of happiness. Genetic set point is the most significant determinant of happiness, at 50%. This is followed by intentional activities at 40%. Life circumstances is the least significant determinant of happiness, at only 10%. Overall, genetic set point is the biggest determinant of happiness while life circumstances is the smallest. The pie chart depicts the average Australian readership in various forms of reading material. Despite reading 50% of articles on the internet, just 20% of books, and 10% of newspapers and periodicals, Australians are among the world's most voracious readers. In general, items on the internet are read more often than those in periodicals. From 1960 to 2000, the means of transportation in a European city are depicted in this bar graph, which is expressed as a percentage. In 1960, buses accounted for 26% of all trips, while walking was the least popular means of transportation, 17%. In 1980, walking was the most popular means of transportation, 38%, while the vehicle was the least popular, 11%, 6%. 40%. Cars were the most common mode of transportation in 2000, while bicycles were the least popular, 6%. From 1960 to 2000, the most popular modes of transportation changed dramatically. A lovely coloured bar graph depicts the main sources of funding for higher education in Scotland. Different colours are used to signify different types of information, such as yellow for services. Overseas fees are represented by maroon, and financial council grants are represented by dark blue. The donations are shown in £1 million in monetary terms, and the data covers the years 1994 to 2002. As can be seen from the graph, there is no difference between Research and Financing Council awards in the years 1994 to 1998, which range between £500 and £750 million, but the gap widens in 2001 and 2002, reaching £1,000 million. Finally, throughout the years listed, services, abroad fees, and endowments make up a small fraction of the assets. The number of persons living in poverty between 1970 and 1990 is depicted in this line graph. 38% of the world's population, 1.4 billion people, were living below the poverty line in 1970, earning less than $1 a day. Nearly two-thirds of the world's population, 1.4 billion out of 5.3 billion, was living below the poverty line and earning less than $1 a day in 1990. Despite the fact that the number of people living below the poverty level has remained the same, the proportion of people worldwide living below the poverty line has declined during the last several decades. In 1970 and 1990, 1.4 billion people were living below the poverty level. The blue vertical bar chart provides significant statistics about daily internet usage between 2006 and 2013. Years are designated on the x-axis, while figures in millions range from 0 to 40 million on the y-axis. The first year of the study, 2006, reveals that roughly 16 million people use the internet, which subsequently climbs to 20, 22, 26, 29, and so on. The most recent year of monitoring was 2013, when roughly 35 million individuals accessed the internet. Overall, I believe that internet usage has risen dramatically during the last few years. A tomato plant's life cycle is depicted in this flowchart. A seed is the beginning of a tomato plant's existence. As it develops roots that go deep into the earth and a stem that points toward the sun, the seed transforms into a young plant. It becomes a mature plant with a robust stem and a large number of leaves as it grows taller. Flowers appear on the mature plant when the time is appropriate. Tomatoes are the fruits of the blossoms. Several seeds can be found inside each fruit. To summarize, the image depicts the tomato at several phases of development. From 1985 to 1990, millions of tons of exports were made from 3 different countries. Wheat exports from Australia, Canada, and the European Union were all in the same ballpark in 1985. As of 1990, the European Union exported over 21 million tons of wheat, whereas Australia only exported roughly 11 million tons of the commodity. In 1988, Canada exported 25 million metric tons of wheat, the most of any country during the time period indicated. The year 1988 had Canada export the most wheat, while the year 1990 saw Australia export the least. The distribution of income in China and the United States between 1970 and 2000 is shown in the graph below. Based on population and annual income, this may be quantified. In 1970, China's income distribution was extremely skewed, with the vast majority of people earning less than $1,000. The price ranged from $5,000 to more than $100,000 in the United States. Around the year 2000, China's income distribution widened from around $500 to almost $50,000. In the United States, income distribution remained basically unchanged. Over the course of the last 3 decades, China's wealth distribution has widened while the US has mostly stayed stable. The graph below provides information on how to address an issue. It demonstrates how the procedure is carried out. State the problem, create ideas, and choose a solution are the steps. The first stage, according to this diagram, is to define the problem. The second phase is to produce ideas. After that, the final phase, as shown in this graph, is to choose a solution. This graph also shows that the next step is to construct the item. The next step is to assess the situation. The results must be presented as the final stage. Finally, this graph is quite useful. The lovely atlas is depicted in the photograph. The continents depicted in the image contain a variety of green-hued drywoods. Tropical drywoods may be found in many locations of America, Africa, and Asia, according to the globe map. The green-colored area in Southern America lies on the east coast and in the center of the map. Tropical dry forests span a greater region of Africa and India. Surprisingly, Australia and New Zealand are not included on the map. Overall, tropical dry forests may be found in various parts of Asia, Africa, and the Americas.